Hey gang, it's time to have a little chat about net neutrality and why it's important to you, the science-loving critical thinker that you are. Net neutrality is the idea that an internet service provider, or ISP, like Comcast or AT&T or Time Warner, shouldn't have the ability to either favor or discriminate against any kind of web traffic or content based upon its source. In other words, Comcast shouldn't have the ability to say to you, hey, pay us an extra $10 a month, or every time you try to watch Netflix, you're going to have to stop for buffering every few minutes. Net neutrality isn't something that's actually strongly protected right now in the United States, and we need good legislation to do that. And so, of course, the Republican U.S. Congress is working hard to do the exact opposite of that. In fact, the government now wants to protect ISPs and allow them that ability to discriminate against web traffic at will. And it doesn't just mean slowing down certain websites for you, like Netflix. It could also mean that you can't even access certain websites if they don't want you to. They're pretty much free to do whatever they want once net neutrality goes out the window. You might think that it's not so bad because you could always just get another ISP, right? Well, unfortunately, ISPs in the United States run what's pretty close to a monopoly. Last year, the FCC released a report showing that 30% of people in the US don't have any access at all to what the FCC considers its standard for broadband, which is 25 megabits per second download and 3 upload. 30% have no option for that. And almost half of all people in the US only have one option when it comes to that. So in other words, they have absolutely no choice. The ISPs even basically admitted to running something like a monopoly, like in 2015 when Time Warner and Comcast wanted to merge, and there were fears that this would create an actual monopoly, but they argued that it wouldn't be because they don't actually compete in the same markets right now. So merging them wouldn't be a problem in that regard. So in other words, they're agreeing to not compete against each other, which is just as good as a monopoly because consumers still don't have any choice. So with consumers not having a choice, that makes it even more important for our ISPs to be held accountable with a solid net neutrality law. Unfortunately, Republican lawmakers, as usual, care more about the industry lobbyists lining their pockets than they do about the voters who will be directly affected by these policies. And so the FCC has now proposed to throw away net neutrality entirely. And the name of their proposal is called Restoring Internet Freedom. I shit you not. Restoring internet freedom. To break that down, they're restoring freedom to large corporations, the freedom to discriminate against certain types of websites and to charge you more money for wanting to access them or just not letting you access them at all. Freedom. ISPs are doing all they can to convince the general public that this is a good idea or just to stop them from seeing any criticism, like when Comcast recently threatened to sue a pro-net neutrality website that called out Comcast for astroturfing. That certainly doesn't bode well for how companies like Comcast might handle internet traffic to websites they don't like in the future. And that's specifically why you should care about this. Trashing net neutrality gives control of information over to large corporations, which is anathema to good skepticism. The public needs the freedom to be critical. If you'd like to let the FCC know how you feel, and you should, TechCrunch has a step-by-step guide on how to comment on their terrible proposal. You can find a link over on my Patreon. I know it's overwhelming because of how much the US government is fucking up right now all at the same time, but this is important and it's well worth the 5 minutes of your time to help fight for healthy, open discourse and fight in favor of net neutrality.